mixing the resin into the stone dust, it's a little bit like mixing up mashed potato. You know, do you remember Smash? I don't know if they still make that, but when you mixed it with hot water, there was always a little bit of dust that got stuck at the bottom that you had to find and mix in, otherwise you'd end up with dust on your plate. Hiya, it's Wendy here again from Toonpish Crafts, and I hope you're doing okay. Today I'm going to have a play around with dominoes. Now, when I was growing up, we played a lot of cards. We also played dominoes. Right the way through my childhood, we were always playing games. And obviously there was no computers then, there was no games consoles. It was a lot different in those days. And I think the dominoes seemed to be made of something white and that was really heavy. Now, to me, when I was a kid, they felt really solid, like stone. Now I'm thinking that resin will be quite light, so I'm going to put something in them to make them heavier and more solid. Yeah, let's see how I get on with this. So we got the Let's Resin domino mould that I bought from Amazon that's easy to get hold of in the UK. And we got some aquarium stones. I have used these before in resin and I know they work really well. I've also got some copper leaf and I want to put the copper in first. So I've mixed up some Vista Cascade and I'm pouring it into a small jug, and I'm going to add the copper into the small jug. Mixed up enough for the whole amount of the domino sets. Now this was a mistake really in hindsight, because it took me so long to do the copper that I didn't have much time to do the stones. But anyway, we'll get to that. So I'm going to pour a little bit of clear resin with the copper into each mould and just position the copper. So I wanted to move it around and put it in the places I wanted it to be. So I'm using a lolly stick for that. I also want a little bit of clear resin in the bottom to reduce bubbles. Now I did have an issue with bubbles, but that was because I'd mixed up the entire amount of resin to start with instead of the little bit for the copper. I don't know why I did that really. I knew it was going to take me a long time. Anyway, coming on to the stones, I'm putting the stones directly into the resin so that I can then pop them into the moulds. Now there were a few stones in here that were far too big to go in these little domino moulds, so I ended up pulling a few out. Most of them were the right sort of size though. Now I start off by using a spoon, but later I decided that the spoon was just too much hassle when I used my hands, because I could feel when the stones were too big. By this time the resin had been sitting here for quite a while and it was starting to get quite warm. Now this is why I really should have done the copper first and then mixed another amount of resin for the stones, but there we go. So once I've got them all in, I heat them up to try and get rid of some of the bubbles that are in there. There is a lot of bubbles in there because the resin is near enough cured. That wasn't a good thing to do, but I carried on regardless because you have to, don't you? 24 hours later, it's time to demould. Now because of the way it worked, there was quite a lot of overspill on these. However, it just takes a bit of a trim up once you've demolded them. They look really good though, I think. I love the copper in between the stones. And this is the first time I've used this mould, so it's always a learning curve when you do things first. Now I'm using a knife here just to trim up the edges of the overspill. Please be careful if you use a knife. I tend to use it like I'm peeling potatoes, but it can be really dangerous, so be careful with that if you're going to do that. And once I've trimmed up all the edges, then I go around with a nail file and sand down the rough parts. Now I do this for every single domino. There are 28 of them, I think. Yep, check in, there's 28 dominoes in a set, so everyone needs to be sanded and all nice and flush to each other. Now I'm using a copper pen here, it's Krylon Copper Pen, and I wanted to go around the outsides and put a little tiny band around the front. I then actually go on later to do the back as well, because I want the copper to show through the stones as the stones are in clear resin. I was going to try and put film on the back, but some of the stones actually were quite lumpy at the back, so I decided to do them with pen as well. Now here I'm showing you that I did the line in the centre of the domino that's on every piece, and right the way around the edge on a really thin line. I just think that makes it. Now I do have quite a lot of bubbles in these, like I said, but the copper really brings it out. I'm using a little tiny bit of black paint, and I've got here a ball tool from when I used to do polymer clay. And I figured the ball tool would fit nicely into the little dots. And once I got the hang of it, it worked really well. Instead of painting on and wiping off, because it would definitely go into the bubbles on the surface if I did that, and I wouldn't be able to get the paint back out. So I thought, I'll do this, and it definitely worked a treat. Once I got the hang of it, I went round and did all 28 dominoes this way, and I think it worked wonders. I've been asked recently if I have Patreon, and I don't. So if you'd like to help my channel out, then put the thumbs up and leave a comment. I always get back to comments. And by the way, I'd like to say a big hello and thank you to all those new subscribers that have just joined me. I hope you enjoy my channel. And for those that are new, just to let you know that I put everything I use linked in the description box below. So here I'm showing you that I'm going over the back with the copper pen. I do actually take all these pieces then out into the garage and coat them in several layers of varnish to protect them. So onto the second set, and I'm going to be using the Let's Resin Chameleon pigments with these. They're mica powders, and I'm going to be dusting the moulds like I've done several times before. I'm also going to be trying the Let's Resin interference powders. Now I've got these recently, I haven't tried them yet, and I decided to go for the silver, and then I changed my mind and go for the gold. So I'm more of a silver person than the gold person, but sometimes it's best to push yourself out of the comfort zone, isn't it? And this is one of those occasions. So this is the dusting method. Basically it's dusting on the powder. I'm going to be doing it randomly, 3 different colours, blowing off the excess in between and then putting the second colour on. That's the plan. So I'm just showing you once the first colour is done, there is some gaps where other colours are going to go. And the second colour I'm using is teal. Why do I keep coming back to the same colours? I'm drawn to these colours. It's weird, isn't it? I'm going to have to get out of my comfort zone with these colours. I'm going to have to go with random colours at some point. What colours would you choose? Let me know in the comments. Tell me which colours to use, because I keep going to the same old things. I thought I was being good going with gold, but now I've gone back to the same colours I always use. Okay, so now I'm going to be using grape, another favourite of mine. And yes, I do love purple. You know I love purple. So here they all are done and dusted, and now it's time to mix up the resin to fill them in. So some of you may remember a video I did a little while ago using stone dust. Now I did buy a big bag of stone dust from a hardware store, and this is it. It's really dark in colour. It's literally stone dust, byproduct from making patio slabs, and I'm going to mix it with resin and Black Vista pigment. It is dark in colour, but it is dust, so it's kind of like cement. And you can mix it with resin and it creates a really heavy, solid, stone-like substance. So this time I'm only mixing enough for 1/2 of the mould. So I'm going to do one mould first and then mix some more resin for the second one. And mixing the resin into the stone dust, it's a little bit like mixing up mashed potato. You know, do you remember Smash? I don't know if they still make that, but it was when you mixed it with hot water, there was always a little bit of dust that got stuck at the bottom that you had to find and mix in, otherwise you'd end up with dust on your plate. That's what it reminds me of. So once it's all mixed in and I've got a nice thick consistency, I don't want too much resin without the dust in it. I want it solid. Otherwise the stone dust will fall to the bottom and leave a clear resin on top. And I really want a solid stone dust piece to make these really heavy. So you can see here I'm just going around trying to get any air balls out of the corners, and I'm trying to make sure that each domino has the right amount of stone dust resin in it. And once I've filled it, it's so heavy, I'm doing the drop bubble thing like you would with jasmonite. Sprayed it with isopropyl alcohol, and this is 24 hours later and it's time to demould. I did them both the same, and because it's black it really shows up the colours of those dusted pigments, and the gold is lovely. So I put the edging with a gold marker, I painted the dots with white, and here are both sets all complete. And I think they came out really, really lovely. And they are heavy. Certainly a lot heavier than resin on its own. And the stone dust is a lot heavier than the stones, because the stones have gaps where it's just resin. Just listen to that clunk when they lay the domino down. It's definitely a more solid piece, and in my eyes a smarter set than just with resin. But that is just my opinion. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. I hope you've enjoyed this one. Thanks for watching. Come back and see me next week, because you never know what I'm going to be up to. Bye for now.